Middle East, is there a path to peace? In the interview, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas.
President Abbas, may I ask you how the peace negotiations with Israel are going? Israel's Ma'ariv newspaper reported a few days ago that the talks had reached a deadlock. Is that correct?
No, that's wrong. The negotiations are difficult, but they haven't reached a deadlock. The fact is, we're still at the beginning. We have time to continue to negotiate the issues, which prove difficult. Claims from some quarters that we've reached a deadlock aren't correct.
Staying on this topic, Saeb Erekat, the Palestinian chief negotiator, said that Israel's settlement policy was, in this phase, an obstacle to the negotiations.
That's a separate issue, and that's correct.
What is your take on that?
Our position is that the settlement policy must not continue. Expansion of settlements in Palestinian territory must not continue. Settlers must not take more land. Settlements must not be built at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These things create problems and obstacles. They're hindering the peace process and making it more difficult to find solutions. All that is correct. But despite that, we're continuing, so we can't say the negotiations have failed. That's not the case.
Are there disputes about areas in the Jordan Valley? There are reports that the Israelis want to stay there.
Quite frankly, I can't comment on the contents of the negotiations. But I can talk about the issues involved. For example, about the borders between us and Israel. Basically, they're those of 1967. I can talk about security following a peace deal. Israel has its idea of that, we have ours. We are discussing these ideas. We present ours, the Israelis present theirs. I can't say more than that. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is responsible for what statements are made about content.
You've already met a number of German politicians. It's well known that Germany has a strong and special relationship with Israel. Do you think your discussion partners show enough concern about the Palestinian question and Palestinian interests?
Yes, there is in fact considerable interest here. There's a good overview of developments, and there's also an opinion on the settlements. The German government considers them illegal and maintains that a solution must be found. And the German government provides generous humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. We're also in agreement on a great number of political and economic issues as well.
Let's return to the peace talks. The Palestinian people are divided about them. Is that a concern for Israel? Because there are no guarantees a potential solution could actually come into effect?
No. When we negotiate, we do so on behalf of the Palestinian people. And when Netanyahu speaks, he speaks on behalf of the Israeli people. Do we have an opposition? Yes. Is it strong? Yes. Does Netanyahu have an opposition? Yes. Is it strong? Maybe. Actually, there's no government in the world which doesn't face opposition. But should you not sign agreements because you're afraid of the opposition? Opposition is a fact of life, and when we sign an agreement, we are giving guarantees. And we are united on one important point. Any deal that's reached should be put to a referendum. So why be afraid? There are no grounds for that.
What about reconciliation between the Palestinian factions? In the press, there's been mention of a phone conversation during the Festival of Eid between you and senior Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. How far have the efforts to resolve your differences come?
There have been phone conversations with Ismail Haniyeh and with Khaled Mashal and with many others. We communicate on a personal level, and we're not so far apart. And there's now serious discussion about reconciliation. To keep that in proportion, if Hamas were to agree to new elections right now, and I guarantee this, then we could be reconciled. and I don't have any conditions other than this. I don't have any other visions.
Is that the only obstacle?
Yes, it's the only obstacle. Hamas was voted into parliament in the last elections. They were free and fair. I was the president of the Palestinian Authority, and now I'm the president of the State of Palestine. And now it's 4 or 5 years later, and we need fresh elections. Hamas should take part, and if they win, that's fine. And if they don't, those that do will govern the country. So the main thing is that if we all agree to hold fresh elections, then we should do that.
There have been several reconciliation pacts with Hamas, 2 in the last 2 years. Was this one stipulation not included in the deal?
Yes, these conditions were included in the deal. We agreed on forming a technocratic government and on holding elections. We maintain that we already have a technocratic government. But when it comes to elections, we should set a date and hold them. Unfortunately, Hamas has been causing delays in this.
There was speculation a few months ago that you might visit Gaza. Will you do that soon?
That depends on the circumstances. I could go to Gaza tomorrow. I could drive from here to Ramallah and from there to Gaza. But what would that achieve? I want to wait for the right moment and only go there when we're close to, no, when we have found a solution to our problems.
Let's turn now to the Arab Spring. Do you have the impression that Arab countries have become less interested in the Palestinian situation over the past couple of years because of what's going on in their own countries?
At the beginning of the so-called Arab Spring, we didn't want to get involved, neither for nor against, whether in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Yemen, or even Syria. We have the same relationships with these countries as we did before. But it would be wrong to say that these developments haven't had an impact on Palestine. It's natural that countries are going to focus on their own internal struggles. A country like Syria, for instance, is fully occupied with its own problems right now. Should I be asking for them to be concerned about the Palestinian question? Of course not. We hope that these countries find their feet again soon, so they can resume their roles both nationally and regionally. But we have an action committee with representatives of the 16 Arab League countries. If we call on them, they are there for us. There might be a meeting in Paris in a few days. That's evidence the Arabs haven't backed away from the Palestinian question, despite the fact that most countries are busy with their own problems. We understand that.
You mentioned the Arab League and its Action Committee. Let's talk about Syria. Thousands of Palestinians have fled from Syria to Lebanon in the last few months. What can the Palestinian Authority do to help the refugees?
We hoped these people wouldn't leave Syria. We hoped they wouldn't get involved in the conflict. We advised them to stay out of it. We appealed to the Syrian government and other parties to leave them in peace. Unfortunately, there were parties to the dispute who didn't conduct themselves well. That led to Palestinians getting involved. Now some are going to Lebanon. Others are dying at sea off the coast of Malta or Italy. The situation is tragic. All we can do is try to ease the suffering of these people and to hope they don't leave Syria. I appeal to them here and now not to leave Syria. They should stay there until, with the help of God, they can come back to Palestine.
Are you doing anything specific to help?
The Palestinian Authority, which is now the government of the State of Palestine, has limited resources. We rely on the support of others, both Arab and non-Arab states. So our own resources are limited. Despite that, we must do everything we can, because these people are our brothers and sisters. We must look after them in any way we can.
There are investigations going on into the death of the Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. Are there any results yet?
Russia, Switzerland, and France are responsible for these investigations. Their results are not yet complete. We have to date only one report. We're going to wait for further results before we make its contents public. We will hide nothing. We'll let the general public worldwide know everything. That's very important to us. We want to know how President Arafat died. He was our president, and we want to know how and why he died and whether somebody was behind it.
When will the results be released?
In 2 to 3 months or sooner.
You say you've received one report. Is that the Russian one?
Yes.
The results were reported in the media.
That was just one report, so we can't talk about the results yet. We're waiting for the 2 other reports. Once we have all 3, a medical commission led by Dr. Abdullah Bashir and a political committee will evaluate everything and make the final conclusions known.
President Abbas, thank you for speaking with us.